Clarkson, can you hear me? Scott, can you hear me? Yes? Sweet. All right. It's 12 o'clock. We know how often agents like to be on time, but we're going to start at 12 o'clock. Okay? So thank you all for being here. We're going to walk you guys through the steps of how to become successful in real estate. We're also going to give you guys some more updated information about what's going on in the market and what to expect. So Dawn and I will be going through each step. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat. We're more than happy to address them. And let's dive right in. Okay? So first things first, how to become successful in real estate. Number one, you got to know your market. Okay? And who has noticed the market's changed a little bit over the last 6, 12 months, right? We're not in the same market that we were a year ago. Okay? And I want to run through here are 5 things that your sellers need to know. Okay? So make note of these. These are the 5 things that all of your sellers need to know. So number one, new listing inventory is rising. Okay? So whenever inventory rises, it obviously means there's more competition from the seller's perspective. And what do sellers do to compete? They drop their prices, right? They have to be more competitive. Okay? And so to give you an example of how much inventory is rising, these are numbers for all of Oakland County. Okay? And they're very easy to access. Go on RealComp and look them up. But inventory levels in August of 2020, we had 13,558 homes on the market. Okay, in 2021, we had 25,542 homes on the market. And last month, this past August, we had 41,823 homes on the market. Okay, so from 2020, which we had 13,558, to last month, we had over 41,000 homes on the market. Okay, your sellers need to become aware of this because they may still think that we're in the market of 2020 or 2021, and we're not. If you don't adapt pricing, right, and if you don't stay ahead of the market, you're going to sit. Also, months of inventory. Okay, so in August of 2020, we had about 6 months of inventory on the market. Okay, in August of 2021, we had 13.56 months of inventory. In this past month, August of 2022, we had a little over 24 months of inventory. So almost 2 years of inventory. So from August of 2020, we had 6 months of inventory. And last month, we have over 2 years of inventory. So you can see inventory is starting to build, okay? And your pricing needs to be reflective of that. So that's the first thing. New listing inventory is on the rise. Second thing, price reductions are becoming much more often and much more frequent, okay? If your home is not sold within the first 30 to 45 days, and you've had a lot of showings, you had no offers, or you're getting low offers, you need to let your sellers know that you have to adjust the price. Okay? And I refrain from using the word price reduction because it has a negative connotation. Use the word price improvement. Okay? We're going to improve the price. We're going to improve the marketability. We have to adjust. That's number 2. So prep your sellers when you're going out presenting in front of them that, look, if we're not sold within the first 30 to 45 days, a market correction and price improvement may be needed. Third thing, less percentage of listings are selling. Okay? That can also be coupled with the fact that agents don't know how to price property and they're overpricing them. So to give you an idea of sales per month in August, so in August of 2020, we had 2,140 sales. In August of 2021, we had 1,884 sales. And last month, August of 2022, we had 1,726 sales. So if you look at new listing inventory and the sales per month, so new listing inventory for last month was about 24 months. And at the same time, the number of sales have gone down. Okay. So inventory is rising, sales are going down, which is why pricing is so important. Fourth thing, this is probably the most shocking number, which if you guys are taking listings, you probably are seeing this. The fourth thing that your sellers need to know is showing activity is down. Okay, the number of showings that people are getting on listings is down. And it's down between 20 and 30%, depending on the price point. So between the price point of 0 up to $150,000, year over year, showings are down 32.5%. Think about that. That's our bread and butter price point. That's up to $150,000. That's first time home buyer price point, right? And their showings from August of 2021 to August of 2022 are down 32.5%. Okay. From the price point of 150 up to 300,000, showings are down 20%. So 150 to $300,000 bracket, showings are down 20% year over year. From 300,000 up to 450,000, showings are down 19.2% year over year. Okay, so 300,000 to 450,000, we're down about 19.2%. And then lastly, 450,000 and above, we're down 3.8%. Okay, so when you're going through your listing presentation, you got to let your sellers know, hey, we're probably not going to get 50 showings in the first week like we may have gotten a year ago. Showings are down. Okay, and there's reasons for that, which we've already covered. The fifth thing your sellers need to know, and we want to help them avoid, expired listings are on the rise. There are much more expireds coming off the market than they were a year or 2 years ago. Not only that, but we're starting to see the average sales price start to level out a little bit. So the average sales price in August of 2020 was $285,000 in Oakland County. Okay, so in 2020 we were at 285. Then in 2021 it shot all the way up to 320,000. So in 1 year we went from an average sales price of 285 all the way up to 320,000. So now last month, we went from 320,000 to 325,000. We only went up by $5,000 year over year for our average sales price. So from 2020 to 2021, we went from 285 all the way up to 320. And then 2021 to 2022, we went from 320 to 325. That's an indication of something, right? Prices are starting to level off a little bit. And expireds in August of 2021, we had about 1,880 expireds in the month of August. Last month, we had 1,929, so a slight bump. So those are the 5 things you need to make sure that your sellers know. Number 1, new listing inventory is on the rise. I gave the numbers for that. Number 2, price reduction are much more often. Number 3, less percentage of listings are selling. Number 4, showing activity is down. And lastly, expired listings are on the rise. Okay, so our pricing presentation at our listing presentation, it was always important, but it's much more important now, because if we make the mistake of overpricing or not pricing properly, we're going to cost ourselves time and money. Okay. So that's the intro. You got to know your market. And those are the 5 steps or 5 things your sellers should be made aware of.
I don't know why it's.
Okay.
We good there? Okay.
I think we're good. Yeah. Dawn, you
And
want to take us away?
yeah, so actually that's an excellent lead into one of the topics I wanted to share with you, which is about building your sphere. As you know, when you first come into the business, or maybe you've been in the business and it's just not something you focused on, your sphere is absolutely the foundation of your business. It's what everything is built around. And typically when you're making those phone calls or communicating with your sphere, one of the first topics that comes up is how's the market? So it's excellent that Alex shared that, because that then leads us into a conversation we can have in really updating people on what this market looks like, because I get that question all the time. And I do let them know it's shifting. I'm very transparent with what's happening. So that's important for everybody to be able to share. But the first thing about the sphere is we need to establish a number in your sphere. I think sometimes we forget our sphere is not the people we deal with immediately on a regular basis. That's the very small portion of our sphere. Our sphere is much larger. Extended family members, it can be people at baseball games, basketball, events from the schools, things like that. But the key is getting those people transferred over into your sphere, because once you can get that person into your world, now you can market to them. Now you can get them seeing you as their real estate professional. So it's really, really critical that you have, first of all, a CRM to put that information in. And number 2, are able to find a way to communicate with them on a fairly regular basis. I don't know how many times this has happened to you, but I know for me, I have, I feel a very strong sphere, and I'll see a house pop up that I know was not something I listed, but it was somebody from my sphere. Solely because I did not do my follow-up. I did not stay in front of them, and that's completely my responsibility. So it's critical that we not only build that sphere, but then we actually utilize it. The way that I like to stay in front of my sphere is to reach out direct. So I have a couple ways that I do this. The first way is obviously that I'm big on hitting the phones. So I get on the phones and I will call every single person in my sphere. It's not something I can do in a day. It takes some time, but it is something that is really, really critical. Another way that I also do that is if for some reason, and I know I've shared this before, I'm driving by something that reminds me of someone I've done a deal with, or somebody that just is someone I have that relationship with, I immediately reach out to them. It has nothing to do with real estate. It is simply a, hey, I was just thinking about you. And typically that sparks a conversation that then leads into somewhere, the market, real estate, things like that. So those are really, really important, because you don't want it to only be that you're taking, you want to be able to give back to them too. So that conversation needs to be not only about real estate. And then the other thing is constantly adding to your sphere. So I am always looking to add at minimum 2 people a day. I can go into a grocery store. I can run into somebody I haven't seen in years that I didn't add to my sphere. I make certain that in some way I am adding people to my sphere every day. Obviously, Facebook being a key way to do that. But when I do that on Facebook, I then actually reach out to them. So I don't just add them, have them as a friend on Facebook. I actually will message them and just start a conversation so that they are aware that this is me doing this. This isn't automated. I want them to have that personal touch. And then this is critical. And I know this is where a lot of us struggle, especially if you're just getting into the business and you're trying to figure out how you contain all these people into a place, is getting that database secured somewhere. Having a CRM that reminds you. I need constant reminders, because our days, I'm sure yours are very similar. You wake up in the morning and you have a plan for the day, and then 20 other things come into that plan. So you have to have some type of avenue to keep you on track. And for me, I use Lion Desk. There's many other great CRMs out there, but that keeps me on track. That keeps me focused on today. I've got to at least reach out to these people on my sphere. I've got follow-up calls with these individuals. And then I don't feel so overwhelmed by forgetting to do that because it's such an important part. And another avenue to reach out to them is to send out, and it doesn't have to be anything special. I do quarterly postcards. I do the large oversized postcards. Yes, they're old school. Yes, some people say I don't do any type of mailing. For me, I do like doing it that way because it's just that one more avenue. Now I'm not only getting them on email, on Facebook, on phone, I'm also touching them at their home physically. So those are really important ways for me to stay in front of my sphere. And I do feel as though that creates that loyalty base that you need to consistently have, because like I said, if you don't do that and you find your sphere starting to dwindle to other places, it's really hard to retain that number that you really want to have in there.
Yeah, if you ain't working your sphere, someone else is, right?
Absolutely.
And so if we got a friend in the business and they list with somebody else, that's on us, right? So knowing your market, building your SOI, and the next step, which you've heard me speak ad nauseum, because it is necessary. It's not a suggestion, it's a prescription. Establish a working schedule. Okay? It's very simple. Every day when you wake up, you choose to either run a reactionary business or you choose to be in control of your business. It's very simple. There's only two options. One, you're going to let real estate control you, or two, you're going to decide to control your real estate business.
Alex,
Okay?
can I say something on that?
Yes.
That is probably the one thing that Alex got me doing in my personal business that changed so much for me, because I felt so overwhelmed by things just coming at me that I wasn't able to really focus on controlling my business, and it was running me rampant, and I had to have some type of focus, and it was that schedule that really helped me to get on track and be able to accomplish probably twice as much as what I was able to accomplish prior.
Yep. And how many times have you woken up in the day and you have a goal you set out to achieve, and before you know it, it's 4 or 5 o'clock and your day's over and you didn't do it, right? Happens to all of us. That is why we have to make the choice to be in control of our business. Otherwise, real estate will control us, right? So to make it very simple, break your day up into thirds. The most important part of your day. If you get anything out of this, get this. The morning is the most important part of your day. If you're not a morning person, neither am I. But every year I got used to, I'm in the office by 8:30 every morning. It's got to be done. You gotta get the most important stuff out of the way in the morning. Okay. It's when you're most energized. You haven't had a full day of problems. You're not distracted, and you're going to be the most efficient. Get it done first thing in the morning. Okay. The first third of your day should be solely dedicated to generating new business. Okay. In a shifting market, we're not going to have as many, drop in my lap opportunities, come list me stuff. We have to go out and get it, which means your lead generation, your prospecting time becomes even more important. The first third of the day should be dedicated to lead generation. The middle third of the day should be dedicated to managing the current business that you have. Listings, buyers, addendums, dealing with title companies, all that stuff, the paperwork stuff that we got to do. That should be done in the middle of the day. And the final third of your day should be presentation time. That should be going on listing presentations, going out and showing property, getting contracts signed, writing up purchase agreements, or have an evening dial session. Okay. The morning should be focused on lead generation, new contacts, lead follow-up. The middle of the day, handling your current business, and the final third of your day, presentation time. Okay. Simple as possible. And like I said, master your morning. Establish the same time you go to bed every night. Wake up at the same time every morning. Try and get in the office the same time every day. How many of you, which you probably heard me say this, actually prep for your day the night before? Okay, good. Some of you, right? So literally, I throw out what I'm gonna wear the night before. I put my gym bag together. I put all my stuff in my backpack. So literally, I wake up, take a shower, brush my teeth, I'm gone. I don't have to think about anything. I don't have to make any choices. I don't have to waste any time. Everything's already done. Okay. You should also be taking a look at your calendar to see, okay, what is on deck for tomorrow? What is it I have to attack in the morning, right? Who am I calling in the morning? Who am I doing my lead follow-up with? When are my appointments? Okay. You also, which Dawn, Stephanie, and a bunch of other people that I've worked with was a big sticking point. You should be setting a cutoff time for your daily work schedule. Okay. We should not be answering the phone at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. If you do it once, you are telling your client it's okay, and they will do it again. Don't do it. Okay. You'll drive yourself crazy. And then you'll get mad at them for doing what you told them was okay for them to do. No. My shutoff time is typically 7:30. Okay. So if you call, text, email me, I don't care what you do, I'm going to probably get back to you the following day in the morning. It can wait. We have to retain some sort of sanity, right? And we have to set boundaries in place. We have to have structure. Otherwise, people will use and abuse us, right? Fourth thing, establish 3 days a week for call sessions or lead generation sessions. Minimum 3 days a week. Ideally Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That can also be door knocking. I have a client of mine who went and knocked on doors last week. He made 55 contacts and get 5 leads out of it. Nobody's knocking on doors. Okay. So if you have a certain, even if you have a buyer, right? Let's say you got a buyer that wants to be in a certain area or a certain neighborhood. You now have a perfectly reasonable excuse to go knock on someone's door and try and find them a home and potentially double dip something. Or if you want to work in a certain neighborhood, if you want to hit a high-end neighborhood, go knock on doors. Find out who's interested in selling. It's very simple. Hey, my name's Alex. I'm a local agent. Just wondering who you know that I can help buy or sell. That's it. All right, go to the next door. Go to the next door. Nobody else is doing it. Okay, we have to go out and outreach people and make contact. And then one of the most important ones, establish weekly, daily, and even monthly goals you can aim towards. If we don't have goals to aim towards, we're just walking around aimlessly. We have nothing, we have no destination, right? If we don't know where we want to go, how do we know, one, how to get there, and two, if we're on track or not? So, I mean, at a bare minimum, all of us are listing agents. We should be at least going on 1 listing appointment a week, at least. You're telling me if you work 40 to 50 hours a week, you can't set 1 appointment to go on? Come on, right? That's 4 appointments a month. Let's assume we only get half. That's 2 listings a month. Who would be okay taking 2 listings a month? All of you better have, yeah, come on, right? Just going out, talking to people, having conversations, creating opportunities, going on 1 appointment a week, 4 appointments a month, taking 2 listings a month. That's how you build consistency.
So with that, part of that schedule, as we know, we already have our sphere. That's our main bread and butter part of our business. But now we want to establish additional lead sources. I know you've all heard this many times. Outside of our sphere, we have FSBOs, expireds, withdrawns, just listed, just sold. Those neighborhoods that we're going to farm are critical. So when you're building that schedule and, you know, on your day, this is a part of that call out or that door knocking, however you proceed to do that. This is a part of that time. So what I typically do, and I know the people that I coach do this, and I'm sure there's many of you out there, hopefully, that are doing this, is going on to Zillow and using it to find FSBOs. The key with a FSBO is not, and I say this to my coaching clients all the time, the key with a FSBO is not necessarily just securing the FSBO, but it's also building your confidence to get outside of your comfort zone, because that is where then you are able to conquer a lot of these because it's really fear that stands in the way of us doing these things. So you're able to conquer that by practicing, and it is practice. And I will tell you that the first probably 3 weeks of me having to do this, I do believe I said to Alex, I'm quitting, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And then got through my barrier. And that's really what it takes in order for you to then say, okay, this isn't so bad. And now I'm seeing results, which is why I'm putting all these steps in place to build my business. So it's really, really important that you step out of your own way when you're doing this particular part of the process. One of the most important parts is practicing the script. I know we never want to sound scripted, but it's okay to sound scripted when you're practicing. That's why you're doing it. We want to follow those steps consistently, continue to repeat until it becomes a part of you. And then you're able to make it a little more natural. But at the beginning, the key is to follow that script the way it is written, because it's written that way for a purpose. So when you do it, you role play it accurately, you write it out just like it is. And I actually keep in my folder, which I don't have the right folder, but I keep a written out piece of paper that I wrote my script on. And I love the handwritten one because it's my writing. And I know that I have committed to it. So I always keep it in my working folder that I have. The other thing is read it out loud. Watch yourself, video yourself. You will be very surprised. I know when I videoed myself at the beginning, my facial expressions were shocking. I didn't realize how I was coming across because I'm reading what I think is just words. And then you realize what needs to be adjusted to make that script really effective. So make sure you're recording yourself using a mirror, whatever it is that you use for that, and continuously practice that craft. It's so important. When you record yourself, also record yourself doing call out. And I do make my coaching clients send me their recordings. And I know Alex made all of his coaching clients do the same. And the main reason is you are your biggest critic. And in this case, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you'll see things and hear things that you can instantly adjust on that next phone call. But in order for you to do that, you have to hear what you really sound like. I know we all love ourselves on tape. It's a wonderful thing, but it is really important that we do that, because it does give us a new perspective on how we sound, and continue to review it. And this is something that I know I've talked about before. I have in my office, Leslie and I partner up a lot. And we actually are accountability partners. And her and I role play, I would say, pretty much daily, and we do call outs together. We sit in the big open space and we actually call out together. It's like rip the Band-Aid off, and we just do it. And the biggest factor for that is I'll hang up the phone and be like, man, I did great. And she'll go, well, let's talk about it. And I love that, because we do get a different perspective. And I'm like, wow, you're right, I did say that. It's so important that you are constantly, and I do this now, I've been doing this for years, and I still do that same pattern. We do it together. We are accountable to each other. We put our goals and everything in front of us, so we know exactly what it is that we're reaching for. And then we also keep track. So I know who I need to follow up with. I know where maybe if I do follow up, a different approach I might be able to take. So I always have my notes, keep all that information in front of me. And then the follow-up system, which is at CRM, making sure that you do that follow-up at least twice a week. So as I do my follow-up now on Mondays and Fridays, there may be days where I say, hey, I'm going to follow up with this guy on, tomorrow again, because I can feel that I'm right there with this lead. But the key is you don't want them going into a weekend without having followed up. And you certainly don't want them coming out of a weekend of rough open houses or whatever it is without you being the first phone call that they get to check in on them. So those are critical points for you that I think can help you with talking to those areas of people that you're really not completely comfortable with, but that script is really going to help you do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. So you know, all this stuff is great, right? But the one thing you guys got to ask yourself personally is, do I run my business like a business, right? Because we can give you all the information you need. We can give you all the advice, all the tools, all the training and everything else. But if it's not actively implemented and if it's not executed, it's useless, right? So you really have to have that conversation with yourself. And if you're not where you want to be right now, then we got to find out why that is, right? We got to make changes. No change equals no change. Okay. So all that we ask is you guys implement what it is we're talking about today, because it will change your business. Okay. So next step, and this is essential, skill development and mastering objections. You have to work on your skill development in a shifting market on both sides. Buyers and sellers are not going to go with their friend. They are going to go with the most skilled agent, because now our value increases at the time of a shift, right? A year ago, anyone can throw a sign in the yard, take relatively good photos, and as long as it's priced right, it's going to sell. That ain't going to be the case anymore. They're going to have someone who knows how to, one, price properly, right? They're going to have someone who can market, who can negotiate, and who can get it closed. Because in this shifting market, as inventory builds, now buyers are also going to want a buyer's agent who not only can find them the right home, but can get them the best value and can negotiate, because now they have negotiation room because there's more listings to choose from, right? Like we talked about, inventory has gone up. It's almost tripled over the last 3 years. Now there's more options, and that's why both buying and listing negotiation skill is incredible. You need to have it. And if you don't, they'll find someone that does. So how do I build skill development? How do I master objections? Like Dawn said, you have to role play. Okay. You have to write out objections. You have to record yourself. You have to work on objection handling techniques. One of the most common ones, which should be a part of your everyday dialogue, and you've heard Darwin and I say this a million times because it works, the response pattern, right? 3 quick steps. Repeat, acknowledge, ask a question. In sales, whoever is asking the questions is in control of the conversation. Whoever is asking the questions is navigating the conversation where it is they want to go. We also have to work on our objection handling techniques. So 2 quick techniques, very simple. One is called reframing. Okay, so I'll give you a very, very obvious reframing sentence. Let's say you're talking to a for sale by owner. Okay, and they say, I don't want to pay a commission, Jake. I appreciate it. I understand what you do, but I'm not going to pay a commission. I can appreciate that. So what I really hear you saying is you want to walk away from the sale with the most amount of money possible, right? Well, yeah. So you took the commission objection, reframed it onto what they're actually telling you, which is I want to increase my bottom line. Okay. So the best way to intro a reframe is, so what I hear you saying is ... Then you fill in the blank. Okay. So you're taking what they gave you, reframing it in a different verbiage to give them a different perspective. Second technique is something called disarming. Okay. One of the quickest ways to diffuse a very heated, tense situation is to disarm someone by agreeing with them, right? So for example, if you're talking to someone on the phone and they say, yeah, I don't want to pay you guys 6% because you don't do anything. You throw a sign in the yard and you wait for something to happen, right? Look, I can appreciate that. And honestly, if I was in your position, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'd probably be thinking the same thing. 6% is a lot of money. And so what I'd love to do is to show you how it is that I earn that 6% and what it is that I'm going to be doing for you. That went from, I don't want to pay you 6%, you don't do anything, to now they have interest. Okay, you can't argue with someone when they agree with you, right? So that's the quickest way to disarm someone, is agree, empathize, and then follow it up with an own question of your own. Okay, never argue. whether you're on the phone or you're at the listing, even if you're right and they're wrong. If they're telling you the sky's green, you know what? Look, I can appreciate what you're saying. If you don't mind, can you help me understand that one? How is the sky green, right? Ask more questions. Don't just immediately try and disagree, because you're going to lose them no matter who you're dealing with. Okay. And if you ever get yourself stuck with someone who's just being an idiot and they're not making sense, help me understand that. Where are you coming from? What is your thinking along that, right? Like, I'm just trying to understand what it is you're telling me. It's not combative. It's not argumentative. I just want you to explain your position so I better understand where you're coming from. Closing process. Okay. Agents love closing. They love it so much they never do it, right? You have to work on your closing on the phone and in listing presentations, because in a shifting market, the sellers are probably going to do multiple interviews now. They're going to be wanting to find the best agent for their home, which means you're going to be competing for listings, which means you need to be a strong closer. Okay. And if I were to break the closing process down in 4 simple steps, this is it. Number 1, we're asking questions, right? That's what scripts are designed for. We're going to ask a series of questions. Number 2, we're asking those questions to find a problem. We're salespeople. We get paid to solve problems. After I find a problem, step 3, I'm going to offer a solution or service to that problem. And then step 4, your favorite, you're going to have to ask, you got to close. Ask for the appointment. Ask for the signature. You got to close. And if it doesn't work when you close, you do it again. If that doesn't work, you do it again. If that doesn't work, you do it again. Okay? Ask questions, find a problem, offer a solution or service to that problem, and then we close. That is how we offer value. We never want to assume we know what somebody wants. We have to ask. Okay? And when we're asking what it is that they want, they are going to tell us, and then in return, we're going to offer to give it to them. That's sales. Hey, what do you want? This is what I want. Okay, so if I give you this, would you work with me? Yes. That's sales. We got to be asking more questions.
So now you've closed. Awesome. Congratulations. And we are moving on to where we walk into our listing. And the key to the listing and the listing presentation is to be repetitive, seamless, keep that process the same, just like when we were talking previously about when you're learning your scripts, keep it the same for a couple reasons. Number 1, it's easier on you, right? You're going to consistently be doing the right things and it becomes a pattern. And number 2, you're keeping it the same for the clients and answering their most important questions, which we're going to get to in just a second, how we're going to get to what their concerns might be. But the first thing is picking up the phone. So we always go back to picking up the phone, and it is set that appointment. Based on what Alex just went through with you, that is how you're going to approach getting that listing appointment. And once you have that set, you're going to then move on to the next step. And this step is so important because when you follow this step, it alleviates a lot of those questions. So you don't have to then necessarily spend your time on these questions and getting them answers when you're sitting in front of them. And that is your pre-listing package. In the pre-listing package, what I like to include is, and again, these can vary, but this is really important. So I would recommend writing this down if you're not already using one. But this is what I send to every single listing before I leave. Once I hang up the phone. And I do it pretty immediately, actually, so that I don't forget and they're ready to review it. I send out my sales history. I like them to see over the last 2 years what my sales history looks like. If for some reason that is not something you have available, maybe you're newer, maybe your results are a little bit different, then you can send out your office. The key is to show them you are infiltrated into that market and you do deal with these types of homes, you deal with this level of activity. Number two, I send out my reviews. I find that the reviews typically get the best response on my pre-listing package because that's what they really want to know. Who am I about to deal with? So it's really important that you include those. Number three, I still use the older Coldwell Banker listing presentation, and I only use it for my pre-listing package. I don't do that when I go out on the appointment, but what it does is share with them why our brokerage is the best. And we want them to know that information because a lot of times you're competing and that answers a lot of questions without you having to spend the time to do that. I also send out a menu of services. And then the most important things that I put in my pre-listing package are the actual listing paperwork, the entire thing, top to bottom, everything filled into the best of my ability prior to meeting with them. And I also put my comparables, but how I do my comparables when I send them out is instead of sending out the full sheet, I actually send out a single page that has the thumbnail version. I'm not interested in them reviewing 20 pages of comparables. What I am interested is them seeing kind of where we're landing here. They're going to start to get an idea of that number in their mind before I even come out. So those are absolutely critical items. Once I know I've sent that out and now I'm at the day of appointment, I do a pre-qualification. This was one that I was challenged with at the beginning, and it has changed so much for how I handle my listing presentations now, because it's very intimidating if you don't use it on a regular basis. And the key to it is those questions are intended for you to get the questions that you need to answer when you walk in that door. You're not surprised. You don't walk into a hurricane of things you don't know how to answer. So the key there is to make sure that you are asking those questions on that pre-qualification script in order to get the answers. And then you'll know what things you want to address. Also, during that time, I asked them if they did review the listing package that I sent. And you really want a yes out of that. If they say they haven't had time, I would recommend that you offer them the opportunity to take a quick peek at it before you get there, because those items can spark questions that we want to make sure we have answers for when we walk in the door. We don't want to be surprised when we walk in the door, although that does happen and you do learn how to handle that, but that's really important that we know those answers. So we've done that, and now we're getting ready for our appointment. Early is on time, so 15 minutes early to be at the home and taking a peek outside. When you get to the door, one of the key things is obviously you want to present yourself professionally, make sure that you are prepared to tour the home so that when you do tour the home, and I know there's a couple of different schools of thought here. A lot of people tour the home with the homeowners. Some people tour it on their own. But the key to touring the home is really just giving you that idea so that when you do sit down with your comparables, you now have that education of what you're really comparing. So that's, obviously a very important piece. And then you're going to deliver your presentation. Your presentation is really going to be tailored around the information that that seller is looking for. It is not about you. It is about them. And like Alex said, the key is asking questions. So, for example, and I know we've done this before, when I'm presenting price, I do it in a very unique way. And when I do present the price, I don't then let them know, hey, so I think based on this is where you need to be. I simply ask the questions to get them to that position of making that decision, because that's a heck of a lot of responsibility for me to have priced somebody's home for them. I don't want that responsibility. I want them to have that responsibility. And then once you've gotten through that, if you've done your job to the best of your ability and you've answered all their questions, then it's time to ask for the signatures. And that is as simple as it sounds like, based on what you and I have talked about and based on the numbers that we've agreed upon, that you're ready to make the decision to get the home on the market tonight. So I'm going to give you this paperwork right here. I'm gonna have you fill in that price point here that you are interested in having the home listed for. And then I'm gonna have you sign right down here. And that's really probably the easiest part of the entire thing, although it might seem like the hardest. It typically works like a charm if you handle it that way, because you have now done your steps and you have done it in a seamless process that has given them the answers that they need to make that decision.
Yep, love it. So we're at the final stage here, right? Listing presentation. How many of you actually have a set, scripted, repeatable listing presentation you deliver on every presentation? Okay, couple. I appreciate the honesty. So for those of you who don't have one, what are we doing? Just kind of winging it? Kind of showing up and see what happens? What's going on? Yes? Fair, right? A lot of agents kind of just show up and see what happens, right? You should have a structured, scripted base that you can build off of. Every listing presentation is going to be different because you're presenting in front of different people, but you should be going into every presentation with some sort of structure you can build off of. Okay? It's very, very simple. Because again, remember all the steps we've taken up to this point. We've set a qualified appointment. We've sent everything out in advance that we're going to review with them. We have pre-qualified. So really all that is left is we're going to talk price, we're going to handle your objections, and then I'm going to ask for your signature. That's it. That is your presentation. Okay? So if we're talking about the structure of a presentation, I'll give you a quick layout. But if you want to learn a bulletproof listing presentation, you need to be at Hard Knocks next week because we're going to be covering that in day 3. But to give you an idea of what a structured presentation looks like, the first thing I do when I sit down, I want to review and recap all the information I got. Because remember, I only talk to one decision maker on the phone. I may have only spoken to the wife. I may have only spoken to the husband. I want to make sure they're all on the same page. They're all on the same page when it comes to price. They're all on the same page when it comes to their objections, their concerns, their questions. I want to know everything, right? So after we're all on the same page and we're all, in the same frame of mind, I'm going to go into what's called the 1-minute listing presentation. So it's 3 quick questions. And this sets up my whole presentation. Takes a little bit of confidence to do it, but if you do it, it's going to help you out. So the first question, number 1, do you absolutely have to sell your home? Well, no, I don't have to, or I'm not in a position where I need, but you want to get it sold, right? Yeah, perfect. Question number 2, which is very important. Do you want to list your home at a price that will cause it to sell? Yes, you do. Or are you willing to leave it on the market for an extended period of time? No, you don't. I'm essentially setting the expectation up front that we are not going to overprice it, which is going to help you navigate the pricing presentation when you get to the CMA. Third and most important question, take a deep breath, takes a lot of confidence, it's going to make you feel uncomfortable. Now, would you like me to handle the sale for you? Yes, you would. Perfect. All right. Well, sounds like we're in agreement. Go ahead and sign for me right here. Now, that's not going to happen a lot. It does happen. But the point is, you got the opportunity. Now, if they object and they say, well, I don't know, that depends. What's your opinion on price? What's your commission? Whatever it is, right? Do not answer the question. I got to get something from you first, right? So let's say it's price. Okay, well, look, Dawn, if we're able to go through pricing tonight and you're happy with everything that you see and you're comfortable with me, would you at least be open to the idea of signing with me tonight? Yes? Perfect. Now I have my affirmation right there, which is going to make the closing process at the end seamless and natural because you already told me up front that if I address your X concern, you will sign with me. This is all setting the stage for you for your presentation. Okay? So after you get agreement from that, you dive into your CMA pricing presentation. I like to bring active, pendings, and solds. Now, if I know I'm going to have to battle with them over price and they're way too high, I'll bring some expireds with me as well to show them what it is they don't want to be. So if you know you're dealing with someone who's a little aggressive on pricing, bring some expireds with you. But I always bring active, pending, and sold. And I always start with active because that's your current competition. This is going to be who we are competing with when you decide to list with me. Okay? So we can effectively price it properly, or we can price it in a way that we're going to help your competition sell, which is not what you want to do, right? Of course not. Who wants to do that? Then I move on to pendings. Because even though it doesn't tell me what it closed for, it told me what price they were listed at that generated an offer. And then lastly, you want to end with solds because obviously those are closed numbers, so the numbers are there. Your pricing presentation is super, super important. 90% of agents are probably presenting price wrong. There's a very simple way for you to do it that will have the seller telling you the price at the end, and they will price it properly. But you got to learn how to do it. If that's something you want to learn how to do, be at School of Hard Knocks, okay? Asking a lot of questions. Again, it's the same thing, same principle. We're asking questions. One thing you want to make note of, even if you think the home is priced properly, you still want to set the expectation that if the home is not sold within that 30 to 45 day window, a price improvement will be needed. So if you're at $300,000 and you adjusted to $299,000, that is not a price reduction, okay? If you're at $300,000 and you drop it at $295,000, that's not a price reduction. If you drop it to $290,000, that's still not a price reduction. Because think about it. If your home's at $300,000 and a buyer truly thought it was worth $290,000, you would have gotten an offer. Okay? So you have to keep that in mind. The price adjustment scale has to be comparable. So if you're at $300,000, realistically, your next move should be $275,000. If you're at $275,000, you should be at $250,000. Okay? If you're at $185,000, obviously smaller increments because it's a smaller price point. But just keep that in mind when you're making your price adjustments. You also want to role play the price reduction conversation. And preferably, if you have people that are going to be difficult, you want to schedule an appointment to have the conversation face to face. So that way you can show them why it is a price improvement is necessary. But you should be role playing the price reduction conversation. So that way, when that 30 to 45 days rolls around and you know you have to have that conversation, it's probably not going to be pleasant, but that way you're prepared. Otherwise, we're going to let them sit there and die on the market, which is not responsible for us to do. You need to be prepared to fight for your commission. There's too many agents out there that don't know how to fight for their commission or doing for 5, 4, 4.5%, 3%. Okay. So go into every presentation with the expectation that you will need to know how to fight for your commission. Okay. And then finally, you've heard us say it multiple times, the best exercise you can do out of really all this is to set up a camera and role play with an agent in your office, your entire listing presentation start to finish. It is one of the best things you can do to fine tune and sharpen your presentation, because I guarantee there's a million things that you are doing that you're not conscious of because you can't see yourself. And that may be why you're not getting the listings or the conversion rate that you want on your appointments. Okay, so we got about 5 minutes left. Those are pretty much all the things that we wanted to hit on today. So Dawn, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I actually, well, one thing, it's if you're on this call, there's a reason you're on this call, right? So you're wanting to improve in these areas. It is so important to take this seriously, to really try and implement these things. Obviously, we've talked about School of Hard Knocks. It's important because the skills that you're going to learn are the things that are going to make you different than the other agents out there that aren't doing these things. So really, you know, if you have questions, reach out to us, but really try and implement this stuff because it does help you. So.
Yep. All right, I guess we can open up for anybody have any questions about anything we talked about today?
I do. This is Deanna.
Yeah.
If you can hear me okay.
Yep.
Is there, in your opinion, is there a negative or any positives or negatives or pros and cons against doing a listing presentation on your iPad and with Remind, having them sign right there? Or once you get the price agreed upon and everything, they want to go with you the whole 9 yards, everything's across the board stars, can you just say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and fill out all the information and I'll get it for you to AccuSign this evening? Is there any advantage to having them sign right there as opposed to sending them the information later and having them sign the listing?
Definitely. Yeah, good question. So I want them signed on the spot, right? Because we all know time kills all deals, right? So the more time we allow them to think about anything when it comes to a decision, the higher odds they have of either backing out or changing their mind. So when I'm there and I have both parties agreeing with me and they're ready to go, I'm like, here, go ahead, sign right here, done, let's move on, right? So whether you do that with an iPad, you bring a hard copy with you, whatever it is, I would highly advise that you get it signed when you're actually there.
Okay, and you don't see any problem with doing it all on an iPad or an electronic device as opposed to?
No,
I'm
mean,
not a paperwork person, so.
Yeah. I got an iPad I bring with me on every appointment. So if you can pull it up and you have the internet access that you need to get everything signed, absolutely. That'd be probably easier for them to sign anyway. You may want to bring maybe just a blank copy. So if they want a hard copy to look at or have a copy of it so they can review it just in case. But yeah, if you can do it on your iPad, I think that's probably even better.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Any other questions or thoughts about anything we discussed? All right, cool. Well, we thank you guys very much for spending an hour with us today. I hope you guys got some good information out of it. Please implement it, use it, and make sure that, you know, we're doing everything we can to stay ahead of the shifting market, okay?
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, thanks, guys.